I am currently in the business of training for my first Ironman 70.3 that's happening early September time over in Austria in a place called Zellamsee. So I spent the last 8 weeks grafting behind the scenes, attempting to learn to swim. I've been putting in a decent shift on the bike, and I've also been doing a bit of running. And ahead of the actual race in Zellamsee, I wanted to do a bit of a test race because I've never done a triathlon before. I wanted to get a little bit familiar with things like the transition areas, what the swim's going to be like in open water, swimming in a wetsuit, etc. This weekend I did exactly that. We had the opportunity to go down to London and race in the London edition of the T100 series. Now, if you're not familiar with the T100, it's basically a series of professional races held at different points throughout the year. I think there's 7 of them across the world. So there's like Miami, Singapore, London, Ibiza, Dubai, and a couple of other mint places as well, basically where pros get to compete against each other. But at each event, or at least as far as I'm aware, at each event they open up a range of different distances for everyday folk to race in. For example, at the T100 London, they had the super sprint, a sprint, an Olympic distance, which is what I did, and then also the T100 for everyday participants. And then the professionals strictly raced the T100, which is 2-kilometer swim, 80k bike, and 18-kilometer run. So it creates a pretty cool event because what it means is you get to race on the course yourself at whatever your preferred distance is, and then if you want to stick around and watch the elite men and women, you can do. Some of the best triathletes on the planet are competing in this race, so it's a pretty cool experience. Anyway, so I headed down from Manchester on the Friday. Horrific decision to drive down. It ended up taking us about 6.5 hours with traffic. It was a shocking decision on my part. Should have just got the train, but because I had so much kit with me, you have to pack for the swim, the bike and the run, I just couldn't bear the thought of getting on the tube with my bike and 5 other bags. It was just, not going to happen. The event was taking place at the XL in East London. It's a pretty cool venue. They do loads of different stuff there, and it's pretty ideal for the triathlon because it's right on the dock. And we managed to get an Airbnb about a 10-minute walk away, which was pretty perfect as well. So the first thing we had to do on the Saturday was head down to the Expo at the XL and pick up our race bib and all the sort of information that we needed to get for the race, and also rack our bikes and prepare our kit in the transition area. Now, I've never done anything like this before, but my God, it was faff. Like, you get so much stuff. You get stickers that you have to put on your helmet in specific areas. You get this tattoo that you have to stick on your arm that just doesn't come off. It's still on my arm now, and it's just pulling my hairs out trying to get it off. Stickers for your bike. You have to wear an ankle tag to track you across all the different stuff as well. It's a pain in the arse, to be honest with you, especially compared to just entering a running race or a cycling event. But to be fair, the instructions you get are pretty clear. I just couldn't be arsed reading them. And fortunately, I got to meet up with some of the lads that I know from different other events and social media and stuff, and they're a little bit more knowledgeable than me, so they were able to help me out pretty good to make sure I had everything that I needed to ready to go in transition. And after we'd sorted all our own stuff, we got to go and watch the elite women race. Now, it's always mad inspiring seeing the elite of the elite, the top 1% of the 1% doing their thing in any discipline, especially in triathlon. Got to see Lucy Charles-Barkley win the Ironman Nice event the other month when we went to go and film that. And she was racing again at the T100 today on home soil as well, so I think she had big hopes for it. The crowd was buzzing for her, everyone was loving it. But unfortunately, she ended up dropping out on the run. I think she had an Achilles injury or something like that. Apparently it was an old injury that flared up again, so it's sad to see her go. And since I've taken an interest in triathlon, she's actually my triathlon idol, so yeah, I was a bit gutted about that. But we got to see Ashley Gentle bring it home for the win. I think she's won the last 2 events. She's a bit of a demon. And also just getting to watch them in transition, etc., gave me a little bit of an idea as to what I was going to be doing the next day. You know what's funny as well? I always find spectating events proper knackering. Always dead exhausting because you're just on your feet all day walking around to different vantage points to try and film and stuff like that. So at about 6 o'clock, I just canned it after we saw Ashley win, and I went back, grabbed a bit of pasta, started a little bit of a carb load, and then went to bed, aiming to get a good night's sleep ahead of race day on the Sunday. Race day morning, so it was a pretty early alarm for us. Woke up about 6 o'clock because my wave was starting at 8:30 and you needed to get there 90 minutes before you actually kick off just to be safe. So I did the usual pre-race breakfast routine, made myself some porridge, shoveled that down with great difficulty. I always just find it really hard to eat on race day morning, especially when you got to get up bright and early. Had myself a coffee, grabbed the rest of my kit with me and headed down to the XL. I went to give my bike a once over and just check that I had everything ready to go in transition, and then we got to watch some of the earlier waves kick off and the nerves started to build on my part. The Olympic distance which I was racing consists of a 1500 metre a swim into a 40-kilometer bike and finish with a 10k run. Now, running and the bike I felt fairly comfortable with. I've done a couple of cycling events, as you might have seen on this channel. I've done a lot of running events, including marathons and stuff like that, so that's more my bread and butter. Swim I was pretty nervous for. Now, I have recently started swimming again, obviously whilst training for this triathlon stuff, but prior to that, last time I had swimming lessons was in about the year 2000. It's been a decade or two at least since I've been in a pool, so I found it pretty humbling experience getting back into the pool as a grown bloke learning to swim. Now, I've been having mixed success with the swimming. I do feel a lot more comfortable than I did originally when I first got in the pool 8 weeks ago. Not really getting any quicker. My technique is still pretty sloppy, so I have had 2 one-on-one adult lessons which have helped quite a lot the week prior to this event, just to give me a little bit of a confidence boost and make sure what I'm doing is right, or at least the foundations of what I'm doing are right. Now, where I didn't help myself, admittedly, prior to the event, I've only done one open water swim, and it was without a wetsuit. So this was going to be my first open water swim with a wetsuit, basically, and the approach that I had in my mind was I am going to do a mix of freestyle and breaststroke, because I don't think my freestyle is strong enough to carry me through 1500 meters, if I'm honest. So I got into my tri suit, put my wetsuit over the top of it, my goggles, my swim cap, and it was time to race. I had a quick 20-minute briefing on the day, and then before I knew it, we were down on the dock, getting into the water, surrounded by hundreds of other swimmers. Now, one thing that I did learn when I did that one open water swim that I did was the water temperature takes your breath away when it is not in the pool, basically, because it's so cold. It makes it really difficult to breathe. So I knew that was going to be the case when I got into the Thames. However, I thought I'd be able to mitigate it or avoid it because I knew it was coming, but I couldn't. I just, as soon as I got in, stuck my head in, and then I just started breathing like a woman giving birth, man. It was difficult to control, and it threw me off quite a lot, to be honest. It made me start panicking a little. You find yourself in a pretty stressful situation. You are at an event, loads of people watching you. You are surrounded by loads of people as well. You are in the Thames. You stick your head under, you can't breathe, you can't see anything because it's so murky under the water. And I was just sort of flapping around for like the first few minutes trying to get myself calm. But if you've swam in open water, you'll know that is easier said than done, especially when you are so new to it. I managed to stay calm overall, and it took me a good 5 minutes or so of swimming, sort of a mix of breaststroke and freestyle, before I managed to acclimatise and I was able to calm my breathing and sort of get into a bit more of a rhythm with it. And from then onwards, I was actually okay. Now, a couple of things that were different to the pool, obviously, every 50 metres or every 25 metres, depending on what pool you swim in, you're able to catch your breath a little bit and kick off the wall. Obviously, you don't have that in an open water environment, so you do have to be able to swim 1500 metres non-stop. And that's quite a long way as well. I did find the distance actually quite long, especially because I ended up swimming an extra 300 meters because of my poor sighting. I wasn't able to see where I'm going like you are in the pool. So what that meant was, if you didn't look up every like 5 or 6 strokes to see where you're going, you just end up veering off in the wrong direction. I found that really difficult as well. So I actually ended up doing 1800 meters according to my Strava, which again isn't ideal. You don't want to be knackering yourself out too much ahead of the bike in the run, but it is what it is. It's a lesson that I learned. But yeah, I was very, very happy to get out of the water in just under 33 minutes, which was a pace of 2 minutes 11 per 100 meters, which is relatively decent for me. I was pretty happy with that in hindsight, especially considering the rough start I got off to. The wetsuit came in so clutch as well. That thing kept me super buoyant. I was barely having to kick my legs. It was really nice to swim in. To shout out Zone 3 for that one, and they've chucked us a 20% discount code in the description below if you are after any tri gear or swim gear. It's some pretty decent stuff. And when I got out of the water, it was just a big weight off my shoulders because we were leaving unknown territory and entering known territory. I took the wetsuit off, you had to put it in the bag and then leg it up to T1. Clocked 800 meters just to get to T1, and I was in there for time faffing around. I think my elapsed time in transition 1 was nearly 8 minutes. I sunk a gel and then it was straight to business on the 40-kilometer bike circuit. The bike was always likely to be the strongest part of the race for me, where I could make up the most time. I would argue it's my strongest discipline of the three. So the aim for me was to give it a good send, but not overdo it to the point where I have nothing left for the run. I wanted to focus a lot on my fueling, to make sure I'm taking on enough carbs and electrolytes, make sure that I feel good on the bike, and also prepare myself for the run as best I can. And overall, I was really quite pleased with how the bike segment went. We did the 40 kilometers in about 1 hour 7 minutes, so it was an average speed of just over 33 kilometers an hour, which again I'm pretty happy with, especially considering I had quite a bit more in the tank, I would argue, in hindsight. We were on closed roads. We got to go up to the London Eye and Big Ben and that sort of stuff, which was nice, I guess, but goddamn, the surface of the roads was shocking. They were shocking. So many potholes. Like riding around, I guess it's like riding anywhere in the UK. The road surface is just a joke. But if you're from the UK and you ride around there regularly, we're used to it, aren't we? It's a shame, but it is what it is. It was just nice to be able to ride on closed roads, to be honest, without the faff of cars and pedestrians, etc. Now, the T100 event are draft illegal, as in you aren't allowed to draft. You have to keep about 10 meters behind the person in front of you. If you get too close, you have to then go to overtake them, and then they have to drop back. It's quite strict on it. They did have motorbikes going around handing out yellow and red cards for penalties, which you then have to sort of sit in a box for 5 minutes, for example, which really does kind of kill your race. But luckily, I didn't get caught for drafting, because I didn't do it. Well, maybe once or twice, accidentally. So I got around the bike. I was feeling pretty good at this point. I'd taken on a couple of gels and I drank a OTE super carb mix as well. So I'd taken on about 120 grams of carbs, and I went into T2 feeling pretty strong. Switched into the running shoes, had one more gel just for good measure, and then we hit the 2.5 kilometer circuit. We were doing 4 laps of it to cover the 10 kilometers. And at this point in the day, it was scorching hot. We're talking like 26, 27 degrees, not ideal for me. And as with every single running race that I've ever done in my life, I went out far too hot, massively overestimated my abilities. I think my first kilometre was about 4:39, which even on a good day where I haven't just done a swim and a bike, I probably wouldn't be able to hold. So when I looked at my watch and saw that, I was thinking, oh God, here we go, this is going to end up in a shambles. And I just gradually got slower and slower till about the 5 kilometre mark, at which point I was just overheating. I was feeling awful, my legs were killing me, the usual stuff that happens in a 10k race. It just became a case of hanging on. I ended up just pouring tons of water on my head. The best thing I did do actually that I would recommend was they gave me a cup of ice at the aid station. I just poured it down the back of my tri-suit and it went everywhere. Places where I should not go normally, but it felt incredible. I started to pay the price of going out too quick, and it had become a positive split masterclass. And by the time I had crossed the finish line, my heart rate had peaked at 196 beats per minute. We had finished the run in just under 50 minutes and completed the entire Olympic distance triathlon in 2 hours and 43 minutes. And I'd massively underestimated how difficult it would be. I think on paper, when you see the distance, 1500 meter swim, 40 kilometer bike, 10k run, you think it's going to be quite nice because it is quite a bit shorter than your typical sort of long distance triathlons. The intensity level is a lot more. And on a hot day down in the capital, took it out of me quite a lot. But for anyone who cares, I did finish in 473rd place out of 1,594 people. So your boy's in the top 30% of the 200 Olympic distance, which I was very happy with because my aim was to finish in the top 50%. But overall, I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed it. It was just so fun. Really did enjoy doing the 3 disciplines in one race. And the next triathlon I've got is the Ironman 70.3 over in Austria, Zell am See. So on that note, yeah, your boy's a triathlete, and stay tuned for more triathlon racing content. Yeah, nice one.